thousands of years. This is Descartes, this is Buddha, this is Plato. We can't have this sort of proof. What we do have is social conventions. It's a social convention that all human beings are conscious. It also applies to animals. Most people who have pets firmly believe that their pets are conscious, but a lot of people still refuse to acknowledge that about cows or pigs. Now, pigs are far more intelligent than dogs and cats in according to many measures, yet when you go to the supermarket and buy a piece of frozen pig meat, you don't think about it as a conscious entity. Why do you think of your dog as conscious but not of the bacon that you buy? Because you build a relationship with the dog, and you don't have a relationship with the bacon. Now, relationships, they don't constitute a logical proof for consciousness. They are a social test. The Turing test is a social test. It's not a logical proof. Now, if you establish a mutual relationship with an entity, when you are invested in it emotionally, you're almost compelled to feel that the other side is also conscious. And when it comes to AI and computers, I don't think that at the present moment computers are conscious, but people are already forming intimate relationships with AIs and are therefore almost irresistible. They are compelled to increasingly feel that these are conscious entities. And I think we are quite close to the point when the legal system will have to take this into account. That even though I don't think computers have consciousness, I think we are close to the point the legal system will start treating them as conscious entities because of this social convention.
What do you as a social convention just a funny little side effect, a little artifact, or is it fundamental to what consciousness is? Because if it is fundamental, then it seems like AI is very good at forming these kinds of deep relationships with humans, and therefore will be able to be a nice catalyst for integrating itself into these social conventions of ours.
It was built to accomplish that.
Yeah.
We are designing it. All this argument between natural selection and creations, intelligent design. As far as the past go, all entities evolve by natural selection. The funny thing is, when you look to the future, more and more entities will come out of intelligent design. Not of some god above the clouds, but of our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, of our computing clouds. They will design more and more entities. And this is what is happening with AI. It is designed to be very good at forming intimate relationships with humans. And in many ways, it's already doing it almost better than human beings in some situations. When two people talk with one another, one of the things that kind of makes the conversation more difficult is our own emotions. You're saying something, and I'm not really listening to you because there is something I want to say, and I'm just waiting until you finish. I can put in a word, or I'm so obsessed with my anger or irritation or whatever that I don't pay attention to what you're feeling. This is one of the biggest obstacles in human relationships, and computers don't have this problem because they don't have any emotions of their own. So, when a computer is talking to you, it can focus 100% of its attention is on what you're saying and what you're feeling because it has no feelings. And paradoxically, this means that computers can fool people into feeling that, there is a conscious entity on the other side, an empathic entity on the other side, because the one thing everybody wants almost more than anything in the world is for somebody to listen to them, somebody to focus all their attention on me. I want it for my spouse, for my husband, for my mother, for my friends, for my politicians. Listen to me. Listen to what I feel. And they often don't. And now you have this entity which 100% of its attention is just on what I feel. And this is a huge, huge temptation, and I think also a huge, huge danger.
Well, the interesting catch-22 there is you said somebody to listen to us. Yes, we want somebody to listen to us, but for us to respect that somebody, they sometimes have to also not listen. It's like they kind of have to be an asshole sometimes. They have to have moods sometimes. They have to have like self-importance and confidence, and we should have a little bit of fear that they can walk away at any moment. There should be a little bit of that tension. So it's like
Absolutely. but even that, I mean, the thing is,
Could be optimized for.
if social scientists and psychologists establish that, I don't know, 17% inattention is good for a conversation because then you feel challenged, oh, I need to grab this person's attention, you can program the AI to have exactly 17% inattention, not 1% more or less. Or it can, by trial and error, discover what is the ideal percentage. Again, you can create, over the last 10 years, we have creating machines for grabbing people's attention. This is what has been happening on social media. Now we are designing machines for grabbing human intimacy, which in many ways is much, much more dangerous and scary. Already the machines for grabbing attention, we've seen how much social and political damage they could do by, in many ways, kind of distorting the public conversation. Machines that are superhuman in their abilities to create intimate relationships, this is like psychological and social weapons of mass destruction. If we don't regulate it, if we don't train ourselves to deal with it, it could destroy the foundations of human society.
well, one of the possible trajectories is those same algorithms would become personalized, and instead of manipulating us at scale, there would be assistants that guide us to help us grow, to help us understand the world better, and just even interactions with large language models now. If you ask me questions, it doesn't have that stressful drama, the tension that you have from other sources of information. It has a pretty balanced perspective that it provides. So it just feels like that's the potential is there to have a really nice friend who's like an encyclopedia that just tells you all the different perspectives, even on controversial issues. The most controversial issues say these are the different theories, these are the not widely accepted conspiracy theories, but that here's the kind of backing for those conspiracies. It just lays it all out with a calm language, without the words that kind of assume there's some kind of manipulation going on underneath it all. It's quite refreshing. Of course, those are the early days, and people can step in, start to censor, to manipulate those algorithms, to start to input some of the human biases in there, as opposed to what's currently happening is kind of the internet as input, compress it, and have a nice little output that gives an overview of the different issues. So, I mean, there's a lot of promise there also.
Absolutely. I mean, if there was no promise, there was no problem. If this technology could not accomplish anything good, nobody would develop it. But obviously, it has tremendous positive potential in things like what you just described, in better medicine, better healthcare, better education, so many promises. But this is also why it's so dangerous, because the drive to develop it faster and faster is there, and it has some dangerous potential also, and we shouldn't ignore it. Again, I'm not advocating banning it, just to be careful about how we not so much develop it, but most importantly how we deploy it into the public sphere. This is the key question. And you look back at history, and one of the things we know from history, humans are not good with new technologies. I hear many people now say, AI, we've been here before. We had the radio, we had the printing press, we had the Industrial Revolution. Every time there is a big new technology, people are afraid, and it will take jobs and actors, and in the end it's okay. And as a historian, my tendency is, yes, in the end it's okay, but in the end, there is a learning curve. There is a lot of failed experiments on the way to learning how to use the new technology. And these failed experiments could cost the lives of hundreds of millions of people. If you think about the last really big revolution, the Industrial Revolution, yes, in the end we learned to use the powers of industry, electricity, radio, trains, whatever, to build better human societies. But on the way, we had all these experiments, like European imperialism, which was driven by the Industrial Revolution. It was a question: how do you build an industrial society? Oh, you build an empire, and you control all the resources, the raw materials, the markets, and then you had communism. Another big experiment on how to build an industrial society. Then you had fascism and Nazism, which were essentially an experiment in how to build an industrial society, including even how to exterminate minorities using the powers of industry. And we had all these failed experiments on the way. And if we now have the same type of failed experiments with the technologies of the 21st century, with AI, with bioengineering, it could cost the lives of, again, hundreds of millions of people and maybe destroy the species. So, as a historian, when people talk about the examples from history, from new technologies, I'm not so optimistic. We need to think about the failed experiment which accompanied every major new technology.
So this intelligence thing, like you were saying, is a double-edged sword. Is that every new thing it helps us create, it can both save us and destroy us. And it's unclear each time which will happen. And that's maybe why we don't see any aliens.
Yeah, I think each time it does both things. Each time it does both good things and bad things. And the more powerful the technology, the greater both the positive and the negative outcomes. Now, we are here because we are the descendants of the survivors, of the surviving cultures, the surviving civilizations. So when we look back, we say in the end, everything was okay. Hey, we are here. But the people for whom it wasn't okay, they're just not here.
And okay has a lot of possible variations to it, because there's a lot of suffering along the way, even for the people that survived. So the quality of life and all of this. But let's actually go back there with deep gratitude to our ancestors. How did it all start? How did Homo sapiens outcompete the other human-like species, the Neanderthals and the other Homo species?
You know, on the individual level, as far as we can tell, we were not superior to them. Neanderthals actually had bigger brains than us. And not just other human species, other animals too. If you compare me personally to an elephant, to a chimpanzee, to a pig, I'm not so, I can do some things better, many other things worse. If you put me alone on some island with a chimpanzee, an elephant, and a pig, I wouldn't bet on me being the best survivor, the one that comes successful.
If I may interrupt for a second, I was just talking extensively with Elon Musk about the difference between humans and chimps, relevant to Optimus the robot. And the chimps are not able to do this kind of pinching with their fingers. They can only do this kind of pinching. And this kind of pinching is very useful for fine manipulation precise manipulation of objects. So don't be so hard on yourself.
No, I said that I can do some things better than a chimp. But you know, if Elon Musk goes on a boxing match with a chimpanzee, you know,
This won't help you.
this won't help you against a chimpanzee. And similar, if you want to climb a tree, if you want to do so many things, my bets will be on the chimp, not on Elon. So I mean, you have advantages on both sides. And what really made us successful, what made us the rulers of the planet, and not the chimps and not the Neanderthals, is not any individual ability, but our collective ability, our ability to cooperate flexibly in very large numbers. Chimpanzees know how to cooperate, say 50 chimpanzees, 100 chimpanzees. As far as we can tell from archaeological evidence, this was also the case with Neanderthals. Homo sapiens, about 70,000 years ago, gained an amazing ability to cooperate basically in unlimited numbers. You start seeing the formation of large networks, political, commercial, religious, items being traded over thousands of kilometers, ideas being spread, artistic fashions. And this is our secret of success. Chimpanzees, Neanderthals can cooperate, say, 100. We, now the global trade network has 8 billion people. Like what we eat, what we wear, it comes from the other side of the world. Countries like China, like India, they have 1.4 billion people. Even Israel, which is a relatively small country, like 9 million citizens, that's more than the entire population of the planet 10,000 years ago of humans. So we can build these huge networks of cooperation, and everything we've accomplished as a species, from building the pyramids to flying to the moon, it's based on that. And then you ask, okay, so what makes it possible for millions of people who don't know each other to cooperate in a way that Neanderthals or chimpanzees couldn't? And at least my answer is stories, is fiction, it's the imagination. If you examine any large-scale human cooperation, you always find fiction as its basis. It's a fictional story that holds lots of strangers together. It's most obvious in cases like religion. You can't convince a group of chimpanzees to come together to fight a war or build a cathedral by promising to them, if you do that, after you die, you go to chimpanzee heaven and you get lots of bananas and coconuts. No chimpanzee will ever believe that. Humans believe these stories, which is why we have these huge religious networks. But it's the same thing with modern politics. It's the same thing with economics. People think, oh, economics, this is rational. It's nothing to do with fictional stories. No. Money is the most successful story ever told. Much more successful than any religious mythology. Not everybody believes in God, the same God. Almost everybody believes in money, even though it's just a figment of our imagination. You take these green pieces of paper, dollars, they have no value. You can't eat them, you can't drink them. And today, most dollars are not even pieces of paper. They are just electronic information passing between computers. We value them just for one reason, that you have the best storytellers in the world. The bankers, the finance ministers, all these people, they are the best storytellers ever. And they tell us a story that this green little piece of paper or this bit of information, it is worth a banana. And as long as everybody believes it works.
So at which point does a fiction, when it's sufficiently useful and effective and improving the global quality of life, does it become like accepted reality? Like there's a threshold which just
People believe it. It's like with money. If you start a new cryptocurrency, if you're the only one that believes the story, cryptocurrencies, you have the math, of course, but ultimately it's storytelling. You're selling people a story. If nobody believes your story, you don't have anything. But if lots of people believe the Bitcoin story, then Bitcoin can be worth thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. You can buy it. If you can't eat it, you can't drink it, it's nothing. It's the story around the math, which is the real magic.
Is it possible that the story is the primary living organism, not the storyteller? So that somehow humans, Homo sapiens, evolved to become these like hosts for a more intelligent living organism, which is the idea. And the ideas are the ones that are doing the competing. So this is one of the sort of big perspectives behind your work that's really revolutionary how you see history. But do you ever kind of take the perspective of the ideas as organisms versus the humans?
It's an interesting idea. There are two opposite things to say about it. On the one hand, yes, absolutely. If you look long term in history, it's all the people die. It's the stories that compete and survive and spread. And stories often spread by making people willing to sacrifice sometimes their lives for the story. We know in Israel, this is one of the most important story factories in human history. And this is a place where people still kill each other every day over stories. I don't know, you've been to Jerusalem, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, people say, Jerusalem. You go there, I've lived in Jerusalem much of my life. You go there, it's an ordinary place. It's a town. You have buildings, you have stones, you have trees, you have dogs and cats and pedestrians. It's a regular place. Then you have the stories about the place. Oh, this is the place where God revealed himself. This is the place where Jesus was. This is the place where Muhammad was. And it's the stories that people fight over. Nobody is fighting over the stories. People are fighting about the stories about the stories. And the stories, if a story can get millions of people to fight for it, it not only survives, it spreads, it can take over the world. The other side of the coin is that the stories are not really alive because they don't feel anything. This goes back to the question of consciousness, which I think is the most important thing. That the ultimate reality is consciousness, is the ability to feel things. If you want to know whether the hero of some story is real or not, you need to ask, can it suffer? Stories don't feel anything. Countries, which are also stories, nations, don't suffer. If a nation loses a war, it doesn't suffer. The soldiers suffer, the civilians suffer, animals can suffer. You have an army with horses and whatever, and the horses get wounded, the horses suffer. The nation can't suffer. It's just an imagination, it's just a fictional story in our mind. It doesn't feel anything. Similarly, when a